right, David. I asked you if you had any special burning questions on your mind.
Questions? Did I say that there was a question?
Okay, not questions, thoughts, Well, what's on your mind?
I do have a light note to bring to the podcast for once.
Oh, what's that?
In my dull,
I like light notes.
Dark, abysmal life.
Except when they're involved with money now, that can be heavy.
Anywho, my trip to the grocery store, because I'm whipping up David's own jambalaya tonight, which certain members and certain co-hosts may or may not have an affinity for. So I was collecting the ingredients as one does at the local grocery store.
Okay.
And just the overall positivity in there, just like I do this all the time because I'm not a piece of shit. And if you are one of these pieces of shit that doesn't return their fucking grocery cart back to the fucking space and you make the guy go hunting for it, you're a piece of shit and you need to be judged equivalently for it. Now, anyway, so I walked my cart back and I throw it in the little thing and some nice middle-aged woman just said, "Have a nice day and stay safe out there." And I was like, well, that was unexpected, I said, "Hi, Happy New Year. Stay safe too." She's like, "Oh yes, Happy New Year. Have a great day. Bye." So it's like a couple of Americans, completely different people, just saying hi to each other. And I was like, in that one moment, I was like, we might make it. We might make it.
Made you feel good inside, didn't it?
A little bit. It was like a little Mary Tyler Moore, like we just might make it after all. I almost threw my hat in the hair, but I didn't have a hat.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had no idea that was the pre-show banter, but I like it.
Yeah.
It's very uplifting.
I mean, I wanted to change it up a little bit. I'm usually, dark, gloomy, and brooding over here. Kind of like my favorite superhero.
I mean, considering today's topic, I just want to call all the listeners back to this cheerier moment in the episode.
Let's rephrase. David brings in happy, good feels, and then Dane comes in and squashes him with his cold, hard facts.
I apologize, but here we go. Weapons of Meme Destruction, episode 26, found at wmdpodcast.com/26, YouTube, all your podcast catchers.
So wait, let me get this straight. You don't find episode 26 by typing in episode 27?
Correct.
Or any other number?
Correct.
You can only find
26
episode 26.
is your go-to.
Okay, thank Christ.
If you like this you like this discussion, remember the number 26. Okay, so
without much ado,
let's
hit it.
I think it's pretty obvious since we obviously this is the first episode you're hearing us discuss the topic, and it's one of the larger events that happened in recent memory. You probably know exactly what this is about. Yes, today's episode is about the Capitol riots and what we think about them. You're never going to guess. You probably haven't seen these takes all over social media by every non-thinking politician, Hollywood member, et cetera, et cetera. These are not your average takes.
It's funny how opinion formulators always seem to formulate one opinion across the board.
Isn't that strange?
Fuck, if
it's
I get
like there's a script or
it's
something.
Like there's this blue check mark email that goes, "All right, you say this or we'll get you."
Oh man, did you just figure out a new purpose for the blue check marks?
Get you, motherfucker. You like that dog? You like walking that dog every day? Dead. Died dead.
Oh, that sounds brutal. This is already sad. Actually, this is not a sad episode. Why are we letting the narrative dictate
optimistic.
Our terms? Yes.
It's optimistic.
It's helpful.
But it does come with some assembly at home though.
Yes. Okay, so let's jump in.
Batteries not included.
Today's meme that we're destroying is this idea of, you're not allowed to have an opinion if you don't have my lived experience. Now, the reason why this is obviously a meme because it applies to the Capitol riots, which we'll get to later. But if you really sit down and think about how often this exact phrase or a version of it comes out in our just everyday reactions with friends and family, people on social media, et cetera, you'll kind of see that this is a way of thinking that people apply in a lot of different ways, always for the same reason, it seems. And it's not a good thing. It's not healthy for society.
Intellectual.
It's not healthy for the individual. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
So, David, what is that? What does that mean? Did I already say it? Did I say it?
Yeah.
Or are you going to say it?
What?
The meme?
The meme? You just told them what the meme was.
I did. I just want to make sure I said it.
All right.
Yeah. This whole you're shutting down discussion because the other person is not allowed to have an opinion on whatever you're talking about because they don't have the same lived experience.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. That's the meme.
Here's a problem for me is that, I mean, I'm a chatterbox. You don't you try to box me in. I'm gonna find something to talk about. And listen. You think
you're
that
a chatterbox that hates boxes?
I'm gonna find my way around your little. I'm gonna find my way around your little box that you put me in, and I'm gonna find my way out, and then we're gonna circle back, and I'm gonna get you in the box. How about that? Okay, you don't want to talk about it? Okay, that's fine. So you like dogs, you like ponies, you like this, and then all of a sudden, an hour later, we're talking about this fucking subject. You had no idea because I'm a chatterbox surgeon.
He is good. I've seen him do it. This is a skill set that I think he's not accurate.
And
he's not
most of the time you think I'm just losing
so.
my fucking mind, but I'm actually working I'm crazy like a fox.
He is. So we want to give you a couple examples of where this meme plays out, and I guess David will tie it up for both of us and tell us what the common theme is between them. So you'll hear this meme come out in the context of abortion. Yep, just jumping right out the gates on you, just like
nice
that.
Soft topic to ease into.
Right.
It.
So again, we're not going to make moral judgments for either side of the coin. We're just going to say this is an example of when you hear it.
We just like to see children killed. That's what we like to do, right?
Jesus Christ.
You brought it up.
So it comes out in the context of abortion when somebody says, oh, you're a male, you're not allowed to have an opinion on abortion because you're not a woman. Okay? Again, we're going to get into this later, but just for the purposes of identifying that line of argument of you don't get to have an opinion because you don't have the same lived experience, that's one example. Another example would be like the parent-teenager relationship, right? They both do it in this context. The teenager says, Mom, you don't understand what it's like, being a teenager today. You don't have social media, yada, yada, yada. How can you tell what I'm going through? And mom and dad are like, well, you don't understand what it's like to have a parent and be worried about their kid, or to be a parent and be worried about their kid, yada, yada, yada. Again, both sides of the equation is saying, you don't have my lived experience, you don't get an opinion. David, you had one earlier. You remember what it was?
You expect me to remember things that I say? Holy shit.
Did I write?
I believe it was the manager employee. You did write it down.
Look at you go.
Listen,
you knew it anyway.
I'm constantly, maybe next time, instead of underestimate me, you'll estimate me.
Yeah.
Hashtag Michael Scott.
Yes, David's right. He remembered. Manager, employees. Again, just like parent, teenager, both sides are doing it. The employee's like, this piece of shit doesn't pay me enough. He doesn't understand what it's like to da-da-da-da-da.
Dang.
Manager says, this guy doesn't understand what it's like to run a business. Therefore, neither one of them,
Dang, there's a correlation between all of these. Are you picking it up? I
got a couple more, though.
I know. Keep going. Let's see if they fall in, too.
Yeah. Say it before David does, though, if you've already picked up on the theme.
Comment.
And then two groups that are, again, the first group wasn't involved with the Capitol riots, but it's a part of the discussion because that side of the ledger is making it a part of the discussion. So BLM and super pro-Trumpers are the two groups, right? So BLM says, we have our grievances and here's how we're going to express them. And some non-African-American individual makes a comment like, but don't burn down businesses or whatever. The BLM activist might say, and I've heard this said, you don't have the same lived experience as us, so you don't know how we grieve, you don't know what we go through, you don't wake up every morning in our skin, et cetera, et cetera.
You can't tell us how to grieve, so to speak, right?
And then the Trumpers, when they have their, in the terms of the Capitol riots, but they have other instances where, a big group of them might lash out. They will say, you don't understand what it's like living in flyover country. You don't understand what it's like living in destitute rural, Rust Belt, Appalachian Mountain.
Yeah, only option, for Christ's sake.
You don't have a lot of options to get out, and you're living an impoverished life as well. If somebody from the coasts or from the city would be like, what are you complaining about? You're white, you have privilege, or, again, dismissing their lived experience, the Appalachian / Midwestern or Rust Belt person might say, you don't understand what it's like to have my situation, so you don't get an opinion.
And to the layman that might have figured out what the common theme between the first three were, if they aren't the eternal optimists like me, they'd say, that last one just threw it off the theme. But not quite so.
Manager, employee, or the...
No, there's a common theme between what was the first example you gave? Was
abortion, parent, teenager, employee, manager, BLM, and Trumpers.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a common theme between them. And I'm being the eternal optimist I am. Some people might have thought that the last one you brought up doesn't apply to the other ones, but it does.
Why?
Because they're all working for the same team. We're all working together. And that's basically what we're trying to go for. Like, you're all in the same family trying to make that work. You're all working for the same company trying to make that work. And we're all living in the same country trying to make that work.
Okay. Yeah, for the abortion and the
correct. Right.
Category.
Well, we're working together to try to make a human.
Right.
We're working together to try to make a family. We're working together to try to make a country.
Right. So to David's point, if we're working together to achieve these goals, family, company, community, country kind of thing, then you would think discussion would be important, right? Because if it's a joint venture, that means there's multiple stakeholders, and those stakeholders could have different outcomes, and they need to be able to voice confidently what those outcomes are to their counterparts, so that they can have a discussion. This is key. Have a discussion about what the real problem is, how to fix it, how to make everybody's material well-being.
And it goes both ways, right? Because if manager doesn't talk to their employees, the employees aren't going to know what to do. And if the employees don't talk to the manager, they're not going to know what's happening on the ground floor, period. Which leads to bad outcomes.
Kind of another theme running amongst all of these examples is that the person who is making the objection, the person who is fighting the objection, the person who is saying,
stifling the other person,
you don't get an opinion because you don't have my lived experience, that person is doing more harm to themselves than they are to the person who they're refusing to allow to talk. Can we call him the
stifler? It's kind of like Stifler from American.
I figured where
Stifler.
You were going Stifler after you said Stifler.
He's got a hot mom.
Okay.
From what I hear.
Anyway, so the point we're trying to make is, in these joint ventures, right, we want to have a conversation.
What's the most important thing?
We want to have a dialogue, especially with people that we disagree with.
If you're working with people, the most important thing to do is to communicate, and communicate properly, right?
Right.
If you're on a battlefield, if you're in the military, you need to know exact communications at very critical times. Mm-hmm. Same thing applies everywhere you go in life. So that's all we're saying right now.
Yeah. Now, to give the reason, because I promised we would give the reason for why BLM comes up in the context of the Capitol riots, because they weren't there and actively engaging in it. But a large echoing sentiment coming from the anti-Trump side was, oh wow, look at how easy, or how they're being treated with kid gloves. If this was BLM, or if the protesters were black instead of white, there would be a very different response. There would be the responses that we saw over the course of the summer, right? So when a Trumper hears that objection, all the Trumper is hearing is that person is being dismissive of my concerns, and here's my concerns. It's not as cut and dry as I'm a neo-Nazi fascist and I only like white people. There's plenty of people in that group who are living in Appalachia. Again, no job prospects except for coal mines that are going to kill them at like 55 of lung cancer. They're living in the Rust Belt in dying rural communities because all the industry has moved out, and the economy is leaving them behind. Like, those are real world concerns that somebody might have, which, love them or hate them, Trump tapped into that. That's why they're so in Trump's camp, right? But those are still legitimate concerns, which, if you wanted to have a discussion with somebody about why they're upset, you might want to start with their legitimate concerns instead of just outright dismissing and lumping them all together as racist.
But to spade a spade, I mean,
yada, yada.
6 months ago when the BLM was having their protests, I guess you would call them the Trumpers. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily, but the more conservative outlook on the riots was the simple fact that they're burning down homes, they're acting outside of the laws of this country, and they need to be reprimanded for it. They were acting as criminals, and they were just basically dissuaded from,
Right.
detracting from their movement because of all the tertiary stuff that was happening, and not listening to the actual reason or the actual message of why they were doing it.
Correct.
In the first place. So turnabout's fair play,
yes.
but
So
again,
yes. So to continue with the script flipping that you just started. So yeah, when the Trumpers say, yeah, but you're burning down private businesses and yada, 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 and not acknowledging the other reasons like police brutality, what does that sound like to the BLM activists? It sounds like you're being dismissive of my legitimate concerns. You're running around saying all lives matter, and I view that as that's just a protest to my protest, that Black Lives Matter. Like, again, the discussion has shut down because the BLM activist says, okay, you're being dismissive of my cause, therefore, you're not Black, you don't have my lived experience, you don't get an opinion. Okay? But it goes both ways. If the Trumper feels that their legitimate concerns are being devalued, they shut down conversations, say, you don't know what it's like to be me. If the BLM activist feels that their legitimate concerns, and again, those concerns are, the police brutality concerns are legitimate. The lived experience of
is
the
valuable.
BLM activists. It's
important.
Yes,
right.
it's an important part of the discussion. It needs to be had by both sides.
And to be fair, I mean, let's be honest. From both of those factions, they couldn't be further apart from lived experience. They're absolutely right. Like living in Appalachia, digging in a coal is not
very
the
different
same.
than inner city Chicago.
Correct. Absolutely. And there, it's accurate. However, that inaccuracy of perceived equivalence of each other's arguments is where the flaw happens.
Yeah, despite being very different lived circumstances, we can sum up a large part of the frustration in both of those communities of...
They seem to have a common theme.
It's poverty, but it's not just poverty. It's poverty that seems to be inescapable. It's almost like everything that you're growing up around, whether it be drugs or crime or, just your community dying in general, the concern is, I have no economic outlook. I have nothing to look forward to be hopeful that I'm going to escape the situation. Right. And that lack of hope is an equally valid concern from the BLM activist as it is from the Appalachian Rust Belt guy. Their race has nothing to do with their lack of hope.
You remember that, it's always such a cliche line from a Bond villain, or like my particular favorite villain in the Bond kind of series or the spy series or whatever, is we're not so different, you and I. Like, they're at opposing sides. By the way, I was impersonating seemingly opposing sides, but they have a lot of similarities. And yes, I was doing Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. Yeah. Anywho, like I said, they couldn't be more on the surface different from one another, but when you look at their situations, it's the similarities are uncanny. And when they fight over those, I'll call it the base layer of like just appearance, that's where you run into troubles. But there's one underlying common theme that both of these communities encounter that have predicated their situation for a long time.
There is one, if not the only, because I understand that life is a complex thing and there could be a lot of things factoring into a single situation. But there is one overarching cause who plays a major role in both of their admittedly difficult lived experiences. And if they were able to have their discussion,
we don't want to bury the lead here.
Right. If the Trumper was able to tell the BLM activists, listen, I understand your concerns about police brutality. I understand
I've got my own concerns myself.
Yes, about the way the state has treated you. And the fundamental key takeaway that I have is that the state is the one doing it. The state is the one that's killing you and then getting off without being charged. The state is the one that is either not paying the grieving family members, or if there is, monetary damages, the taxpayers just foot the bill. There's no personal accountability. I understand that those are state agents doing that to you, and that's wrong, and that should be stopped. If that Trumper was able to acknowledge that, and the BLM activist was able to acknowledge about the Trumper, about their economic hardship, and that just because they're white doesn't seem to be doing them any favors in terms of escaping those economic hardships, to be able to say that to the Trumper and say, I understand that, and I understand that the government is the reason why that's happening. I understand that, consumer prices are going up because the government is inflating the dollar. I understand that, your jobs are leaving the country because the government has made American business anti-competitive. I understand that, your situation of having to pay taxes, when you only make X number of dollars, I understand that that's taking valuable dollars out of your pocket that you can't save and invest in, yada, yada. I understand all of that and why you would be upset about it. And if they had that conversation, and to David's point about similarities, here's the focal point similarity, is that government in both situations, whether through its policy on the Trumper side of stagnating economic growth in their areas, or whether it's explicit, in-your-face, obvious government abuse when they kneel on somebody's neck on the BLM side of the ledger, the point is that these are state actions. These are things that are being forced on people. They're just told to live with it. And then I put it to you, dear listener, as a thought experiment. If you go down the ledger and say, does my government seem to be more afraid of me, or am I afraid of it?
Well,
and just engage in that mental exercise for a second.
I mean, what could be argued that is happening is what we do, I wouldn't say like intelligence-wise. Well, how you destabilize another region is how you basically are destabilizing this country, because you pit two sides against each other that weren't actual enemies to begin with. The actual thing that was causing the conflagration was standing in the middle, but the thing standing in the middle, i.e., whatever agency is working within that country that was abroad, they would just cause this conflict between these two, let them cause this civil unrest and bring things down themselves, and then once things are brought down by themselves, then they move in and they put in the fucking...
This reminds me of a funny tweet I saw this week. I got to track it down for the YouTube channel, but somebody tweeted, due to travel restrictions, the United States is engaging in internal regime change this year.
No shit, man. I mean, and it's easy, and just another point before I turn the mic back over to you, it's easy to get caught up in all the visceral images and stuff like that of somebody walking into the Capitol House that isn't supposed to be there.
It's not only not supposed to be there, but the famous picture of the guy that was holding the Confederate flag in the Hall of Congress.
All the pictures of like the Camp Auschwitz and the 6MWNE. Did you hear about that?
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, apparently it was covered a couple of times. It was it's super anti-Semitic overtones is what I've heard, but I heard it reported, and I don't have any evidence to back it up. However, the visceral images alone are enough to make you sick to your stomach.
Right. Well, what do they play on Fox News about the riots all summer? They display all the fire and destruction, like whatever. Fighting, right. And then what do they display about the Capitol riots? They show the Confederate
it's more
flag.
About if you can get through all that visceral, base layer stuff and get down to what actually happened.
Right.
Like, finally, I would like to hope like the silver lining being that finally it was a warning shot across the bow of the people that literally send 18-year-olds over to get blown up. They actually had to hide under their desks this time.
Well,
they actually had a threat of force brought to their doorstep, and we saw how they reacted.
Yes, you're exactly right. And tracking back to the meme, because we want to get to what David had just started right there. Tracking back to the meme of, you don't have my lived experience, therefore you don't get an opinion, therefore discussion is shut down, therefore if you're not talking, what's the only way to resolve your differences?
Correct.
Through violence. Because of that whole meme that's shutting down discussion in society, you have the BLM activists on one side viscerally hating the Trump supporter, and then you also have the Trump supporter viscerally hating the BLM activist, and neither are looking at the common enemy that we really just described, which is not only the government that's contributing to the grievances that they're both upset about in their respective communities, but these are people that start 2-decade-long wars and spend trillions of dollars while poverty rises in their own country just for foreign adventurism. These are people who said, like Madeline Albright, when confronted with 500,000 children deaths in sanctioning Iraq in the early 90s, and she's literally said on 60 Minutes, we think the price was worth it. Starving 500,000 children, the price was worth it. These are the people that are contributing to, as the UN calls it, the largest ongoing humanitarian crisis in the world today in Yemen, along with Saudi Arabia and the United States, is the direct movers and shakers in that. These are the people that, sent soldiers to war in Vietnam to bring it home for David and I. And then when they did morally ambiguous things as ordered by their superiors, they get left behind because that's just an inconvenient truth they don't want
to bring it back home.
These are the people that conducted the Tuskegee experiments. These are the people that conducted MK Ultra. These are the people.
You can keep going.
Again, how many more do you need?
Project Paperclip. All the stuff. Like,
yes, thank you for stopping me.
But to bring it back home, and this is the last one that we'll do of this, these are the same people that are telling you to shut down your business and give up the way of life that you might have been working on for umpteen years. It doesn't matter, 20, 10, 5, 6, doesn't matter how it was your way of life. It was your ability to support yourself. You give that up, and they expect you to do it, comply completely, give up your life, give up your ability to support yourself while they're getting their fucking same check every week.
They got their world-class health insurance. They got their paychecks. They got their trips to the Hamptons. They got their, nice
you don't.
fancy
they don't
homes
even
in
have
their
to say it. It's Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. Like they're literally doing that right in front of the population, and you expect there not to be some rebuttal. You've been,
right.
And then to point to the media, let's not leave them out because they're all too eager to point the finger at every other direction. They're the ones that have also been espousing like how, depending if you turn on Fox or depending
they've
if
been
you turn
fanning
on
the flames.
Of course,
right?
Of course, that drives up viewership.
They're fanning the flames of hatred for those two groups.
But have they ever taken responsibility?
No, of course not.
When anything goes to shit.
But I had a couple more. These are the people.
Go for it.
More modern ones.
Okay.
Let's go. These are the people that passed the Patriot Act.
These are the people.
They're the
That's
ones,
a T-shirt. These are the people, and then we'll just have a bunch of.
They're the ones that passed the NDAA. They're the ones that have Snowden as a criminal, and the people that are spying on American citizens, completely in violation of the Constitution, are just staying in positions of power. So. These are the people. Dude, here's my last one.
Best shirt ever. You get your pen ready. Go ahead. This is your last one.
These are the people in 2008 who, when the banks tanked the economy, said, you know what, we're going to give a bailout to the banks and the American citizens just get a larger debt bill.
So everybody that was dying from the economy tanking, okay, we're not going to bail you out. We're going to bail the exact reason why the economy is tanking out because they're too big to fail.
So let me ask you a question.
Hold on, I didn't get my T-shirt off. Can I slide in my T-shirt?
Hope I don't forget my question.
Ask a question then.
Here's my question. and I asked it earlier and kind of went on before you could answer it. But in light of all of this, does it seem like your government is more afraid of you, or if you are more afraid of it? And if the answer is that you are more afraid of it, and it is constantly pitting you against your neighbor to use this meme, you don't have an opinion because you don't have my lived experiences. Therefore, you don't talk, you don't reach the conclusion of who is really at bottom, the result of your justified grievances. And so the two of you don't work together against that government. That's why the government's not afraid of you.
And you're cutting off your own nose to spite your face. You're hurting yourself.
Yeah,
when you shut
to the
down
theme
the
of
other
all
party.
those examples.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. The one that's shutting down the discussion is hurting themselves. Because if they're not having this discussion, the government keeps acting with impunity, and then does their lived experience get any better? I think if you ask both of those groups over the last 20 years, they would not tell you that they've gotten any better.
Hey, then just to state it right here, how much change did the BLM riots affect?
None. Last I checked, all the cops are still getting off the hook.
Yep. So, I mean, that's the literal let them eat cake in the actions. They won't come out and say it, but their actions speak louder than words.
Right.
Can I track back to my t-shirt
yes,
right now?
You can do your t-shirt.
All right. Now this might be the hot dollar sale of the summer. All right. Let's get it going. On the front, these are the people.
Okay. ...
But. And then on the back, it says, we are the people, with R being totally capitalized.
You don't want it all capitalized?
No, just the are the people, because it drives the fucking point home.
But as
I'm the people.
As I'm looking at
it's an homage to the Constitution, and you should get your little constitutional boner out right now.
Okay, I mean, it kind of looks like the back of the shirt is answering the front of the shirt that they're the people. And if they listen to this episode, they're going to realize that when we said these are the people, we were not speaking fondly of those people.
You want it to be thought invoking, bitch. Like you want people to walk up and be like, "What does your shirt mean?" You know how many times?
No, you're right, because the but does change it.
Yes.
Say these are the people, but we are the people because we have the power. Yeah,
because and then to bring, which ties me into the shining point.
I don't know why we have to do this on
being
episode.
The eternal episode, because when we get our merch, this is how we're practicing for our merch.
They don't have to know the creative part behind it. Whatever.
Well,
continue.
We're on record as this moment in time is.
Obviously.
Okay,
it's in the episode now.
Yeah,
There's nothing we can do to take it out.
Fuck, what was my eternal optimism? I was going to tie a bow onto this thing. There's a ray of light of sunshine at the end of this. And there's been a lot of people wondering if this is going to be the fall of Western society as we know it. Well, the identification of Western society is not the American government. The strength from America is not our government. The strength of America is the people. We are the strength of the
it's still those philosophical beginnings to the country,
right?
Which even if they have been rendered largely illusory today, are still at least a part of our
tenets,
culture.
Tenets.
The idea that, freedom, the idea that, if you give one person, enough opportunity that they'll be able to make their lives better, like that hope, that optimism, like that is a fundamental tenet underneath this country that people are angry because they feel like there's less of it today.
That's what this fights. When we're fighting each other, we can't do this.
Right. And so each person that's saying you can't have an opinion because you don't have my lived experience is hurting themselves because they're shutting down the discussion that gets us to this point where we talk about who our common enemy is, what to do about it, because as David's merch point is very well taken, we are the people. And we're told that our government is supposed to serve us. I think we can all look at it as objectively as possible and realize that it's not. It's serving a very, very small group of itself and its politically connected brothers and sisters. The rest of us are left out in the cold, and we have the power to change that. But we just have to start by destroying this meme and shutting down discussions.
Start talking. There's literally a black jazz or blues artist that collects Ku Klux Klan wardrobes from people that he convinces to leave the Ku Klux Klan through no other motive than just the conversations they have between them.
Yeah, Daryl Davis or whatever.
Yeah, literally, if he can do that, you can talk to a Trump voter, or you can talk to a liberal commie. Like you can do that. It's possible to have a conversation.
Yeah,
just fucking talk.
It is, but as long as you're not talking, as long as this meme persists, and the further down the road the can is kicked on having those important discussions about who the common enemy is, the common enemy just continues to not only grow, but use our own disagreements that it has fanned the flame on to make itself bigger. If you don't think that the government will use this Capitol riot incident as an excuse, as a pretext for call it a domestic version of the Patriot Act, right? The Patriot Act is supposed to apply to global terror, but bring this one more home. You don't think that they're capable and will use this opportunity to pass a law that said,
more control,
expand the definition of what it means to be terrorism to the point that they can, quote unquote, legally lock you up for things so attenuated from terrorism.
Or maybe lock you down. Lock the entire country down for any fucking reason whatsoever.
Right. So, as long as we don't focus on them doing stuff like that, they're going to keep grabbing more power. And that's what has to stop. Because that is fundamentally
that's counterintuitive
at the heart of everybody's legitimate
grievances. Because if the Patriot Act actually fucking worked, that wouldn't have happened on Wednesday.
Yes, true.
But it's the counterintuitive thing with government. It's always what you're not. It's like when the CARES Act comes in, it's the most uncaring fucking bill that's ever seen.
Yeah.
Like whenever it's the Patriot Act, it's the most unpatriotic thing that has ever been written. Like a patriot stood up for his rights, stood up for what he believed was just. This was cowering in the face of getting hit in the dick and said, I'll give up all my freedoms so that I'll feel a little safer at night. Like, that's not what this is. That's not what this country is about. And every time we give up a little bit more of who we are, we become a little bit more of what they are. And that's just what it is.
And that's violence to get our way. Well said.
Boom.
Well said.
So sorry I didn't bring the yucks this time. And we didn't
there's a couple yucky yucks.
But
listen, if you got too bummed out, we hope the ending was a nice silver lining. The fact that we're calling for, discussion from both sides. But if it wasn't, like I said, track back to the opening banter. That was a happy-go-lucky story.
Yeah.
So,
or maybe just
humanity is good. It has its good.
Smoke a spliff aspects. And look at the sun. Not directly because it's super bad for your eyes.
Yeah.
But just go sit in the sun for a little bit and just realize that we're on this big blue marble in the vast scheme of things.
Yep. That's right.
You are Stardust, my friend.
You can find us at wmdpodcast.com/26, YouTube,
not
all the podcast catchers. Hop over to that website, wmdpodcast.com.
Smash that like button. Smash that like button, dog.
2 reasons. First of all, right now, you want to jump on our email list. Because as you know, we're on a lot of different social medias, but at the rate everything's going, who knows what tweet or meme we post on Instagram could get us banned tomorrow. Who knows? So jump on an email list. You'll never lose contact with us no matter what the big tech giants do. But the other thing is, we want you to be familiar with the website because merch and the opportunity to donate to the show if you like what we do here and want to help us continue, those options are going to be available very soon. So we want you to keep coming over and we'll make an announcement when it is officially. But pop over to the website from time to time.
And until then, you sweet, lovable bastards, you keep listening, keep your head on a swivel. God bless America.